Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Radhe Radhe Govinda, Govinda Radhe, Radhe Radhe Govinda, Govinda Radhe. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Radhe Radhe Govinda, Govinda Radhe, Radhe Radhe Govinda, Govinda Radhe, Radhe Radhe Govinda, Govinda Radhe, Radhe Radhe Govinda, Govinda Radhe. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Guru Dev, Guru Dev, Guru Dev, Jaya Jaya Guru Dev. So I'm just learning. Thought I'd do that. Okay. Om Timarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshuan Milatan Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Om Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyatmani Sri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayaniti Namine. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Nama Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namana Gauri Tavaisi Namaha Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhi Vrindavaneshri Vrishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Haritpriye. Hey Krishna Karana Sindhu Dino Bando Jagapate Krishna Gopika Kanta No Radhakanta Namostute. Vanchakalpa Turubhyasacha Kripa Sundyo Vevacha Patitanam Pamvebhyo Vaishnavyo Nama Namaha. Om Vrindaya Tulasi Devyaya Prayaya Kesavakticha Krishna Bhakti Pradi Devi Satyavachai Nama Namaha. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So I'm just I'm practicing speaking again. So I'm talking about I just wanted to talk about the nature of the soul and our constitutional position as a servant of Krishna. So all the fragmented parts of Krishna throughout the universe, Jiva Loke, Manamsa, Jiva. So all the fragmented parts and parcels of Krishna, are covered over by different bodies, but ultimately the soul is pervading every single body within the universe. So this all-pervading consciousness, Brahman, is there, and that is Krishna's energy, and we are one part of that supreme soul. So our position is Jivera Surupya Hoi Krishnara Nichadas. Our constitutional Swarup, the Swarup, the original form of the soul, which is transcendental. So the form, actually the soul, we see everything in terms of gross matter, space, time, matter. So all these three different energies are here: space, time, matter, in the material world. So so they're all limited. Time has a beginning, has an end. Matter has dimensions. Space, well, we can understand with our mind that it's unlimited, but we're confined within this space. So everything is confined due to its infinitesimal position. So we have this duality of unlimitedness plus the finite. So this is the nature of the soul, but the soul itself is transcendental. So when we're talking about a transcendental substance, such as the soul, we have to understand it by its qualities, by Krishna's qualities. So, because ultimately, Ishvara Parama Krishna Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha. So this Sat Chit Ananda, this Vigraha, this form, this spiritual form, full of knowledge, full of Ananda, bliss, which is very blissful, because that's the nature of the soul, especially with the knowledge aspect, because it's ever expanding. There's no limit to the glories of Krishna. Lord Ananta is trying to glorify Krishna with his many thousands of heads. That's a very bad impression of Lord Ananta's many thousands of heads. But he can never come to the end of Krishna's glories, because Krishna is unlimited. The soul can't be contained. It doesn't have any beginning or end. It's beyond matter. It's beyond time, and it's beyond space even. So we can conceive of unlimited space, but it's even beyond that, because the soul has nothing. It's beyond space, even beyond the infinite space that we can conceive of. So in the human form of life, we have an advanced consciousness. It's said that there's two classes of people that are happy in this world: the retarded, or the simple-minded person, who's a bit constricted in his activities. Because he's simple, he's satisfied with simple things, but he's not intelligent, so he doesn't understand the nature of the universe. So therefore, a simple person, a stupid person, can be happy. But then we find all the different varieties of material ignorance created by the dualities of identifying with the temporary, mundane matter and not understanding the nature of our own souls. We become conditioned. So the spirit soul is under so many misconceptions about the nature of its own soul. It's identifying with the temporary material nature. It's trying to confine the soul or give it some material meaning, which it's not. So how can we understand the nature of the soul? Because after all, we are embodied, and so we're struggling in this material energy, and we're identifying with it. And that knowledge comes from Krishna. So in the spiritual world, knowledge, the nature of the eternal self-illuminated realized souls, they have an understanding about the nature of the soul, because that is an eternal truth. So here we're conditioned, so we're born in ignorance, and then we have to work it out. So it's, instead of being eternally situated in a proper consciousness where we're self-illuminated and we understand the nature of ourselves. Well, it's a funny story, because even in the spiritual world there's some covering over, but in the Vaikuntha planets this knowledge, this Santarasa, is prevalent, because the knowledge of God is available in the Vaikuntha planets, because everyone is worshipping God. And also, even in Krishna Loka, in the topmost, sweetest pastimes of the Lord, this Vishnu worship is going on. So God consciousness is there, but it's covered over by the sweetness. So in other words, everyone's doing their religious duties and worshipping Vishnu properly, and they have a proper understanding about the nature of the soul, but at the same time the Lord's pastimes are going on with Krishna. Yogamaya is making this arrangement that Krishna appears and everyone's bewildered. They don't know that he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so therefore Krishna's stealing the butter from all the gopis, and he's going into all the gopis' houses and taking all their butter. And even though they're whinging and they're complaining to Mother Yasoda, oh, your son, he's such a terrible thief. Every day we find broken pots, and he's let the monkeys into our house. And so this is going on, and Krishna's taking the butter, but actually, because it's a transcendental pastime, all the gopis are, all the mothers over there are thinking, let Krishna come and steal butter whenever he wants, because he's such a sweet little boy and he brings so much joy to my heart. So these transcendental pastimes are going on. The transcendental nature of the world's a little difficult to understand, because we tend to see everything through our materialized, especially in this Kali Yuga, because everyone's identifying directly with the material nature, and this science of the soul has been lost. So when you look in a mirror, you are seeing a soul, huh? How will you understand that? You can't put the soul under a microscope. You can't necessarily imagine the mind with a materialistic mind that's always trying to, understand things empirically, by your own senses, by your own intelligence, by your own mind. You're trying to work it out. But actually, this science of Krsna Consciousness, it descends from the spiritual world. So there's a pastime where the living entities are put into illusion here. And what is that? Why are the living entities put into illusion here? Well, this is a function where the Lord gives us our independence, our freedom. So without freedom, there is no such thing as love. There's no rasa, there's no personality, there's no duality within which each individual can interact and have relationships. So therefore, this material pastime is a necessity for the function of the soul to have complete freedom. So it's a very mysterious situation we find ourselves in. But it's like a prison, because we're trapped in here. You know, everyone wants to be free nowadays. Everyone wants to change their sex or be whatever they want. If you want to be a dog, you can, you know, be a dog, and everyone has to respect that, and you know, recognize you as a dog, you know, out of respect for your identification, you know, because this sentimentalism's going on, that everyone can be whatever they want, you know, and let's just you know, live and let live. So it's going on like that. But really, I mean, an intelligent person that understands, well, I'm not a dog, I'm a human being, you know, dogs and humans are a little bit different, you know. So, you know, and in the same way, wanting to change sex and everything like that, it's due to ignorance, because everyone is awarded a certain type of body by the material nature, and we you know, we need to use our particular body, especially the human form of body, to intelligently understand who we are and why we're in this situation. How did we get here? Where we're going? Where we come from? Like that, and that can be understood through Krsna consciousness. So Krishna, you know, there's a verse: Nityasita Krishna Prema Sajya Kabunai Sravanadi Surachiti Karai Udai. So this Nityasita Krishna Prema is just eternally situated in our hearts. That's our nature. When you look in the mirror, you're seeing a spirit soul. You're speaking because you have a spirit soul. And as I mentioned before, you know, it's not something you can put under a microscope. It's transcendental. It's the essence of the self, and it's not material, and it's not bound by space and time and all these other. But at the moment, because we're in the embodied situation, we're thinking in terms of a beginning and an end, and space and matter and all these things. But the soul is transcendental to all of these. So above, you know, the 5 gross elements, earth, fire, ether, water, air, and then you've got the subtle elements like the mind, the intelligence, and then the ego, which in most cases is false, because we're identifying with the material energy in a certain bodily situation that we've found ourselves in. The ego is determining what our actions are. So if you, for some reason, you know, well, I'll talk about different occupations. Like if you're a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer or a scientist or a you know, professor, so many different vocations. So you identify with that particular vocation, and therefore, you know, you go out every day, and that's your job, and that's how you work, and it determines your activities. So that's the ego. But ultimately, this ego comes from the spiritual platform, comes from the consciousness. So the true ego is to understand the nature of the soul itself. And the soul is beyond a temporary designation. It's Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha, because it is part of God, part of the original consciousness from whom we all come. So God is eternally full of knowledge. So in a way, us developing our knowledge or learning things, really it's just an awakening of what potential is already there. So, you know, there's a saying, you know, they're reinventing the wheel. So the wheel is something, you know, if nobody knew about the wheel, well, someone could discover the wheel, you know, and then the monkeys would be, ooh, 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 yes, now, ooh, ooh, put the stick in the wheel, and, you know, and then they worked out, because, you know, boulders and stuff, they don't roll that well, you know, like square boulders, but you get the nice round one, and it rolls, and then they worked out that you could put something in it, right? And then they put another one. Oh, they've got wheels now, you know. They put 4 of them together, and you got a car. Well, a cart, right? So, you know, and that's how we evolved, of course, you know. The monkeys, you know. They worked out that you could rub some sticks together. And then, you know, you keep rubbing, you put some dry grass and stuff near it, and then it gets hot enough, and then, you know, it smoulders, and they made fire. So the fire was keeping everyone warm, and you know, And then the female monkeys worked out, well, they didn't like hair so much, so they liked the smooth monkeys. So eventually, because everyone was sitting around the fire, and they was, and they preferred smooth skin, by adaptation, the monkeys eventually became like humans, skinless monkeys. Huh? Whoop, whoop. We're monkeys. No. See, this is the mundane material mind. We're thinking, how did we come from matter? How did we evolve? No. It's explained in the scriptures. This knowledge is part of God. So therefore, when Brahma creates the universe, he manifests all different types of living entities in order for the different desires of the living entities to be fulfilled. So according to your desire, you'll get a certain type of body. And so this intelligence is already there, eternally. It's already there. And this material universe is created this way. This is spiritual science, see? Not that, this is the descending process coming from God, coming from that eternal knowledge. And how can we understand that? Well, in a way, because it's a, it's not a material understanding. It's a knowledge that already exists, that eternally exists. It's just something that we have to accept, right? So we can understand that by faith, right? We have to put our faith in those who have realized it themselves, because it comes from God, and then those souls who are advanced, who realize the nature of themselves and of God by meditating on God, Sravanadi Sudha Chitte. So by hearing and chanting about Krishna and about the different transcendental activities of the devotees with Krishna, and hearing the discourses of the sages, we understand the transcendental science of the soul. So that's through faith, through hearing, by investigation into the pastimes of God and the histories. And so it's really a matter of just being aware of who we are, aware of these different spiritual histories, and developing our spiritual intelligence, and coming out of this dark cloud of material ignorance that everyone becomes covered over in the material energy. So there was a verse that I wanted to talk about. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Uddhava is talking to Krishna. So Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Ishvara Parama Krishna, Krishnas tu Swayam Bhagavan. He's accepted as God by all the sages and all the devotees. And Krishna's reputation precedes him. So, he's full of beauty, full of all strength, knowledge, fame, renunciation, like this, wealth, has all the wealth. So he's full in 6 qualities, and he performs many pastimes. He had 16,000 wives. No one's ever expanded themselves that many times. He lifted a mountain, using his mystic cities. He's within the atom of everything. So, and he's manifesting everything. He's giving it form, shape, and all its different qualities. So he can, by his power, he can easily lift a mountain. He's creating universes through the agency of his different expansions, like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva's covering over everyone with the false ego and the mode of ignorance. So that's there, And so in the 11th canto, Uddhava is explaining Krishna's explaining to Uddhava what the nature of devotional service is. So this devotional service is transcendental, and we can understand it by hearing Krishna himself, who is, full in knowledge and understands the complete transcendental science of how to approach him. For him, he says, I've just taken from verse 15 in chapter 29 on Bhakti Yoga. For him who constantly meditates upon my presence within all persons, the bad tendencies of rivalry, envy, abusiveness, along with false ego, are very quickly destroyed. Did you catch that? Because this is a very important verse. This is one of the essences of devotional service. It's a basic principle. It's like a foundational proof. It's the foundation of bhakti, is that everything is part of God, and everyone is in the same family of God, and everything comes from God. So therefore, and because the nature of the soul is that, it doesn't suffer hunger, it can't be cut. Our material bodies will, because they're like a machine, we need to feed it. But the soul itself doesn't really need food. It doesn't need all of these things. It's completely self-sufficient. But in the embodied situation, we're forced to breathe, we're forced to act, we're forced to eat, and like this. And then our senses are dragging us here and there. Oh, let me go and enjoy this. Let me engage in this. Because we have this sense, we have these hands. We've got to do something with our hands, What are they going to do? People fidget, they smoke cigarettes. They're chain-smoking cigarettes, and destroying their lungs, because these bad habits, that people develop, well, if you want to smoke, you want to smoke. I'm not the smoking police, but we don't recommend that you destroy your body. We recommend that you keep it healthy, so you can realize your nature in relationship to God, and you can transcend this material energy ultimately, because this is a pastime of the Lord's where He gives us the freedom, and then depending on what you want, you take so many births. Brahmananda Brahmiti Koni Bhagavan, Guru Krishna Prasadi Bhakti Ladabi. So people are wandering from birth to birth, and then finally, you're very lucky. You meet someone who understands this transcendental science, and that is the spiritual master, someone who's realized their relationship with Krishna. So we have this etiquette and a tradition, because everyone has to learn off somebody. So you take a spiritual master, you hear from someone who understands this science of God, and then you can also understand the nature of yourself. So that's tadvidhai pranipatina, upadekshanti sevaya, no, tadvidhai pranipatina pariprajnina sevaya upadekshanti tejanam dhanani nastatva darshanam. So one should approach the spiritual master and render some service. Because remember, everyone is a part of God, and we're all one family, so we should always be respectful to everyone. That's the basic foundation. Just instead of trying to be greedy to enjoy everything and take everything for yourself, try and develop a little bit of God consciousness and see that everyone's part of God. This is the science of the soul, that we don't covet things for our own enjoyment. Our position as one little minute jiva, one infinitesimal jiva, is to just take what is allotted to us for our enjoyment. You only need so much to eat. You only need, a place to lie on the ground to sleep, a roof over your head, some clothes to keep you warm, maybe a fire, whatever, The monkeys worked it out when they evolved. So we should try and see everyone as a part of God, and if we can hear from someone who's understood this science and be respectful to them, because we should be respectful to everyone ultimately, and especially someone who's a little bit wiser, a little bit older, if for some reason they were born with, and they showed exceptional spirituality that came with them from a previous life, then we can respect even a young child who spoke transcendental knowledge. Just like Prahlad Maharaj, the son of Hiranyakashipu, the great demon who terrorized the universe with his austerities and powers. And, he was fortunate enough to hear from Narada Muni, who's a rishi. See, this is another thing about how knowledge is eternal. So when Brahma manifests the universe, he manifests the different rishis, and they're not born like ordinary living entities. They're born with transcendental knowledge. So this knowledge exists eternally, and these rishis and different Nityasiddhas who have eternal bodies and eternal relationships with the Lord are always situated in transcendental knowledge. So Narada Muni is a manifestation of the spiritual master, and he is, because he's a representative of Krishna, he's very dear to Krishna, and so therefore we give him the same respect that we do the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because ultimately everyone's very dear to God. Everyone. Dogs, cats. That's what I wanted to come to. So, dogs, cats, everyone, everything's part of God. So, in the next verse it says, disregarding the ridicule of one's companions, one should give up the bodily conception and its accompanying embarrassment. One should offer obeisances before all, even the dogs, outcast cows, and asses, falling flat upon the ground like a rod. So this is a very important verse about being humble. See, if we don't have this humility, if we're thinking we're superior, if we don't develop this service mentality to everyone, if we're thinking we're superior, then we've forgotten our position as Jivara Swarupya Hoy Krishnera Nitya Das. So this respect has to be there for all living entities. And one shouldn't see oneself above any other living entity. One should see oneself as the servant. So, like that. And be respectful of all. So that's our position. Even the spiritual master considers himself the servant, like that. So he's doing his duty out of compassion to help other people who are in ignorance to understand their position as a spirit soul. So we should be respectful of the spiritual master too. He's helping us, so we should surrender to him, to this knowledge that he's giving us. He doesn't need our worship. He doesn't need our to be fed so much. I mean, there's enough food available for everyone. The cows are eating. There's plenty of grass. The elephants are finding enough grass and foliage and whatever they eat. Horses, the monkeys getting their bananas, while they're evolving, rubbing sticks, making fires, losing their hair, evolving. So until one has fully developed the ability to see me within all living entities, one must continue to worship me by this process, with the activities of his speech, mind and body. Hare Krishna. Seeing the absolute Supreme Personality of Godhead everywhere, free from all doubts, our activities become purified. So Krishna is saying this is the best possible method for understanding him. To see everyone as a part of God, like that. That's the process of God consciousness. And we can do that by understanding how Krishna is God, the Supreme Person, like that. How else do we get a human form, I was lucky, I got a pretty ugly one, not so good looking. So it's easy for me to renounce this body. The sooner I get out of here and get a decent body, the better. Hopefully, I won't have to take birth again. But, ultimately, that's up to Krishna. Because whether we're embodied or in the spiritual world, our position is always to be a servant of Krishna. So, Nityasiddha, Krishna Prema, Sajja, Kabunai, Sravanari, Surachitte Karai Udai. So by this process of hearing and chanting about Krishna and his pastimes and meditating on the nature of the self and the soul, we can come to the transcendental position. And it's a process of self-realization. Everyone is a spirit soul, part of Krishna. And by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, one comes to the transcendental position. One can realize the nature of his own soul. Because we are a soul and we are part of Krishna, and this is our position, to be a servant of Krishna. Jivera Swarupya Hoi Krishnera Nichadas. So it all begins with faith. Everyone has faith. We're putting our trust in someone else. They're giving us a promise. Even in a mundane material transaction, someone needs some money. So what happens? Your friend comes to you and says, I've got to pay the rent, but I accidentally spent too much money this week. Can I loan $50? Give me $50. And then, because he's your friend, you say, I have faith that you'll give it back to me. Just whenever you get the money back and, you've got some spare cash, just throw me back a lobster or, $50. So like that, we put our faith. In every transaction we have some faith, that we have some trust in that promise. That promise of at least some decency, some respect between two souls. See? How are we having relationships? How are we interacting? Because we have consciousness, because we're spirits. So therefore, in order to understand this transcendental science, all we have to do is we have to have faith. Faith in the holy name. Faith in Krishna and faith in the devotees who teach us about Krishna. And so in this way we can understand the nature of ourselves, and we can become free from this material condition that we're in, free from birth, free from death, because the soul is beyond birth, beyond death, like that. So this is wonderful knowledge. This is true liberation. This is the true liberation. How to become free from birth and death in this very body is to understand the nature of the self. So, from faith. So this faith is there. And we have faith. We have faith in the scientists who teach us that we come from monkeys. We have faith in the astrophysicists who talk about space, even though they've never been there and they don't know anything about it. They're just speculating, We have faith in NASA that shows us the images on the TV of them going to the moon, but we understand that the moon's a spiritual place full of heavenly beings from the scriptures. So reality, they've never been there. Sorry to break it to you. But it's all a bit of a scam, if you want to look into bubbles in space, or look for all the cheating on the ISS where they've got cables and they're getting caught in cables and other discrepancies, with the CGI graphics or the zero-G planes. So this cheating's going on because people are very desperate to enjoy in this one life. They have no understanding of the soul. And therefore, these qualities of honesty and knowledge and everything are diminishing. And this divine faith in this transcendental knowledge is people have no faith in God or faith in the soul. And because of that, they can't understand who they are. So this is the fallen position of the conditioned living entity. Shraddha. From Sadhu Sangha. So we should really we should be, thanking the saints, the people with the spiritual knowledge. We should be thanking them very much for helping us understand about Krishna. And they give us what? What do they give us? They give us the best charity. They say, here, take this mantra, which will free your mind and help you come to the transcendental platform by meditating, the 9 processes of devotional service. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Parasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dashyam, Sakyam, Atminivadevanam. So hearing and chanting about Vishnu or Krishna, and then we can remember Krishna. And by worshipping the lotus feet of Krishna from top to bottom, the whole transcendental form of Krishna, by doing this worship and offering prayers, and then realizing that really Krishna is our best friend. Yes, Krishna is actually our best friend. Krishna is our well-wisher. Krishna is giving us all facilities to enjoy however we like. We have complete freedom, and he's fulfilling all our desires. So if you want to come to Krishna, then all you have to do is you have to call out to Krishna. The reason we've forgotten Krishna is due to our previous activities. We've been placed in a position in order to fulfill our separate desires from Krishna, and therefore we are in this precarious position in the prison of the material world, going from birth to birth. No sane man would really do it, would really want to do it, but this is the pastime where we're given freedom, So therefore, until we realize that actually this is no fun, this is a pretty shitty situation, birth and death constantly, well then, then it's time to seek out to understanding who you really are in truth, and what your actual position should be in relationship to the Supreme Soul. And that's why the devotees come, and they're very mercifully explaining this science for anybody who wants to come back home, back to God with Krishna. So yes, you meet the sadhus, and by this faith, by putting your faith in them, because we have faith in so many material things, now it's time to put our faith in the spiritual things which come from God, that divine, divine discrimination. We have to use our intelligence that comes from God, right? To understand how, the divine of knowledge goes up to God, right? And we have to, understand what are the different qualities of this world that are keeping us entangled here, and what bad activities, what sinful activities keep us dragged down and bound in the prison cell of the material existence. Yes, it's a prison. We're in a prison. Can you leave your body? How can you leave your body? When you die, you'll get a new body, isn't it? Everyone's going to get a new body, Asmin Yathada. Yeah, Komaran Yavanam, like this, from birth to old age, from youth to old age, like that. And then finally, dead. Then it's time to get a new body. And depending on what you did in this life, you'll get another body according to your consciousness. And so if we don't purify ourselves and develop our love for God and go back to our original spiritual position as an eternal servant of God in the spiritual world, then we remain trapped here in the illusory material world, which is like a reflection, Soul thinks, how can I enjoy? Why is Krishna always getting all the attention? And here you come to the material world. You fall into the material world. Not like that, actually. It's a pastime. The living entity has is given some freedom in the material world, like a reflection. This is like a reflection, but once you wake up from this nightmare, then we return to the spiritual world, like that. So, something like that. Anartha niriti. So one has to get rid of all the bad material identification, false ego, and greed, and the lust, and the envy, and all these bad qualities, anger, that are keeping us tied down into the material position, trying to enjoy the material world, bound up in an unlimited desires to be the best man, the strongest, getting the money, show me the money, yeah baby, look at me, I'm a gangster, yeah baby, gangster, got the guns, I'm a rock star, I don't know, Bon Jovi or whatever. So you've got all these different false egos, everyone's trying to enjoy, but ultimately, unless we come to the transcendental position and understand this transcendental state, science, the nature of the soul, through devotion to God, because whatever you give your attention to, that's like devotion. I'm very devoted to playing the piano, so I become an expert piano player, right? You're giving your attention to that. If you're a ladies' man, you give your attention to seducing women, you're always chasing the opposite sex, it's like that. If you want to be the best physicist, you're very studious, you've got all the books on, you're going to the library every day, you're studying, like this. So whatever we give our attention to, that's like we're giving our devotion to that. So in order to advance spiritually, we have to spend some time, giving our time to transcendental topics, hearing about Krishna, hearing about the different pastimes in the Mahabharata between Arjuna and Krishna. And then, the Bhagavad Gita was spoken, and Krishna sung the song of God, where he instructs Arjuna, who's bewildered by the material energy and having to kill his own family in a fratricidal war. He's thinking, well, what's the use of winning the war? And he's lamenting so much over the position that he's been placed in by the material energy. So therefore, he has to reconcile the very difficult dualities of birth and death and dishonor and fame and, family disagreements. And so this is going on in the material world. We have these problems, everyone's very busy trying to enjoy the material nature. So there's a competition, and everyone's identifying with their nation. This is my country. This is, I'm black. Hey, brother, yo, I'm white. Yes, I'm very educated, white, fancy male, We go to universities, we learn, at Harvard, and, we get the top pedigree in the science degrees and PhD, like this. So, and then from that, everyone's going out trying to make money on the stock market, mad to, try and go down to the local races and gamble and win, buying their lottery tickets. I'm going to try and win $1 million, so I'll be rich and I don't have to work anymore. And then the businessmen are all competing with each other, trying to make the most money, get the business of everybody, But, ultimately material nature's already providing water, rain, you just put a few seeds in the ground and grow it. The cows provide so much milk, you just have to herd them, keep them in a paddock. You want the milk, you've just got to get some milk. I mean, how hard is that? How hard? Can't be that hard. No, but we have to make everything so complicated and difficult in material existence, and everyone becomes so greedy and lusty, especially in this age of Kali, because we've forgotten this culture of God, this Vishnu Smaranam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, this devotional service to Vishnu. Vishnu, who's fulfilling all your wishes? Vishnu is wishes, Vishnu, right? That's the etymology of that word. That's where it comes from, right? Wish and Vishnu is the same word. It comes from the Sanskrit of Vishnu. Previously, everyone used to worship Vishnu and understand that we were all part of God. And society was very nicely cultured and ordered. You know, some people weren't intelligent. Some people didn't want to meditate on God so much. They were happy to hear from others who use their intelligence to understand God. So therefore, when everyone works with the Brahmanas, the intelligent class, who understands the different rituals and the different natures, you know, prescribed activities according to our nature, in order to, you know, fulfill all the needs of society at the same time as worshipping God nicely, then everyone becomes very peaceful. But, you know, and so the businessmen, they would, you know, tend the cows, you know, produce lots of food, you know, gather natural resources for building and, you know, creating different structures for the businesses of, you know, looking after the cows and the granaries and you know, creating the flour or whatever at the mills, whatever Vaishyas do. So, and you know, of course, the Kshatriyas were a vital part too, because they would cull the wildlife to stop them from growing out of control and terrorizing the people. You know, if the wild animals, if jackals and hyenas and bears and lions and tigers and that proliferate too much, then they can be a threat to mankind and the cows. So therefore, you know, in order to practice violence, because sometimes due to ignorance, there's many cultures of ignorance where everyone's desperate to try and secure everything, right? For themselves, for their own pleasures, instead of just sharing it, you know, in a nice God-centered culture where everyone works together. You'd have this duality where everyone's thinking, well, it's mine, you know, we're not all the same, I come from a different clan, and then there'd be fights. So these Kshatriyas were there to protect this this culture, you know, this God consciousness from ignorant people. So the Kshatriyas were a necessary part of society, you know, in order to keep the balance of nature, you know. So sometimes killing is necessary, and you know, and then if they killed any animals, they perform purificatory rites, you know, certain mantras, and you know, there were certain prescriptions of what they could and they couldn't kill, and the circumstances that they could kill. So it wasn't just mundane, you know, wholesale slaughter and factories where, you know, for the sake of the tongue, we just, you know, breed animals and we all eat, you know, just like varieties of meat, and, you know, these animals have to suffer so much in confinement like they do nowadays. No. You know, there wasn't that much meat eating at all, you know, maybe for a lower class outside of the Vedic society, but everyone was vegetarian because, you know, that's non-violent, and you can get all the nutrition you need just by offering God something that's made from fruits, grains, nuts, and milk products like that. So, and herbs as well, give it a bit of flavour. And so yeah, it's vegetables like that, vegetables, fruit. So this society was very nice, you know, in God consciousness. But nowadays, because everyone's so ignorant and they've forgotten this culture of God or Vishnu, and his different incarnations that appear from time to time to, you know, when different circumstances arise and there's different problems, God would take the perfect form in order to rectify the situation on the earth. So God's like that. He's always looking after the living entities. He's always providing all shelter, all opportunity to come to him, to understand him. He's not cruel. This whole this whole ignorance about God, why did bad things happen to good people? No, sorry, doesn't happen, Bad things happen to bad people. Sorry to break it to you, bad things are happening to bad people. You only get a certain birth in a certain situation due to your previous karma. So if you've fallen into this situation where, say we're in this very sinful age, it's because maybe you did something in a past life. Yep. But, because everyone's innocent to a certain degree, so therefore, there is, it is a horrible situation to be in, but nevertheless, everyone's here by their own desire, because ultimately God, in the beginning, when in the Satya Yuga, all the humans are in a situation where this God consciousness is taught to them, right? So therefore, by the rishis, by the sages, by God himself, he comes and he teaches this transcendental science, the nature of the soul. And then he says, go forth and enjoy and perform your sacrifice to me, and everyone will be very happy. And at the time of death, by remembering me, you will come to me, right? Like this. And everyone goes out and they do that, but if you don't do that, well, bad things happen. And that's why we find ourselves in this situation. So by hearing and chanting, following the devotees, being respectful, accepting, the guidance of the spiritual master, taking initiation, which means, just taking the first step in this spiritual process, hearing from people who are affectionate to you and who are more advanced spiritually. So their intelligence is very refined in this spiritual science due to some realization in the heart, some relationship with God. So they're understanding all these different transcendental science. And from that, if we can find that association, if we can just hear from them and think about Krishna and talk about Krishna and chant Krishna and glorify Krishna, then very quickly we come to the transcendental position. It's actually very simple, very easy. As soon as you start chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. You are on the transcendental platform. You are situated in Krishna consciousness. You're associating directly with the holy name of the Lord. And by remembering Krishna, you are in the transcendental position. And the more you can think about Krishna and understand about Krishna, the more you will understand the nature of your own self. That we are also have the same qualities. Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha. We are eternal. We are full of knowledge that comes from the soul. We are blissful because there is no end to the soul. So therefore, this temporary material situation we're in isn't the end of me. So my happiness does not end with this body. My happiness goes on forever. And by understanding the nature of the spiritual form, we understand, actually this material form is a reflection of the spiritual form. So God also has a personal form, so therefore his jivas, or parts and parcels, also are formed in the image of God. So therefore this divine form comes from God. He says in the Bhagavad Gita chapter 10, Opulences of the Absolute, that I am the ability of man. So man is very, we're pretty chuffed about how good we are, how advanced we are. And that is because we come from God. And this, we're very knowledgeable because we have a soul that has all knowledge. So therefore, when we're discovering things, when we're discovering knowledge, it is really just a manifestation of the self, because the soul itself is the source of all knowledge. So yes. Well, I was going to read the rest of that. No, that's the best. Yes, that's the best possible method. So, let us take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who has descended in the form of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to teach us real knowledge, his devotional service, and detachment from whatever does not foster Krishna consciousness. He has descended because he is an ocean of transcendental mercy. Let me surrender unto his lotus feet. So this is a verse about the latest incarnation of God, who's mercifully disseminating this process of devotional service to us. He comes to Krishna, Tavaisi Krishna, Pango Astra, Pashadam, Praye Sankitana, Yagne, Sankitana, Praye, Yajanti, Haisu Me Siddha. So Lord Chaitanya descends in this age of Kali, and the intelligent people will worship this form of Krishna, who is not blackish, but it is Krishna himself. So Krishna comes in this Kali Yuga as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And what is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? He is showing how to perform devotional service to Krishna. So, because Krishna's the devotional service to Krishna is so sweet and so pleasurable, and the love that the gopis and his divine consort, who is the Kaya Vyuha, all the different devotees, and everything is really a manifestation of Radharani's love, because she is the divine goddess, the original Haladini Shakti, a manifestation of worship to Krishna. Aradhana, worship. Radha, that's Radha. She is the topmost worshipper of the divine personality, Krishna. So, yes, Krishna comes and he wants to taste the sweetness that Radharani, tastes when she's in the association of Krishna. He wants to taste the beauty that she sees, the relationship that she has with him. So therefore, Krishna, he's thinking, what is this? What is this pleasure that they have when they're in my association? Even I don't experience that much ecstasy, I mean, sometimes Krishna's crying because Radharani's in man. She's angry, right? And she rejecting him, she's upset with him because Krishna's a bit naughty. He goes off with other girls, he's a bit of a, wanton, lusty boy in a sense, even though he's completely transcendental, and these transactions are built on pure love, for the pleasure of each other, like a competition of love. What is that verse? No. Yeah, Krishna's saying to Uddhava, I am controlled by the unalloyed devotion of my pure devotees. That their love controls me. I'm not controlled by mystic powers or Sankhya Yoga, the philosophy of Sankhya Yoga, pious activities that come from following, the Varnashram or Dharma, Vedic study, not by the study of the Vedas or by renunciation or austerities. He's controlled by the love of his devotees. So therefore, You know, Krishna's wondering, what is this love and the love that they feel? So he's coming as Lord Chaitanya to experience what a devotee feels. So he's actually performing the Krishna himself, right, is performing the pastime of being a devotee of himself as Lord Chaitanya. So Lord Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikriti, Haladini Shakti, Tamanava Pipa Deha Badam, Tod Chaitanya Kam, Nomi Krishna Swarupam. So, you know, Krishna is, he's accepting the Kanti and the mood of Radharani. So he's in the golden color now, right? And he's chanting, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare. So he's lamenting, where is my Krishna? Huh? When will I see Krishna? Huh? He has this love for Krishna. Huh? So if we're very fortunate, we'll develop this love for Krishna ourselves. We'll be able to call out, oh, where are you, Krishna? Ha, Krishna. We'll cry for Krishna. And by this love and this devotion for Krishna, we can go back to the spiritual world. We can be situated on the spiritual platform and experience the highest bliss that's possible. Even, you know, this bliss that you feel, it's, you know, Ramancha Kampasu Taranga Bajo, the spiritual master's feeling so much love and bliss for Krishna that his hair's standing on end. The tears are rolling down. Sometimes they're, you know, spraying out like a syringe, you know, so much tears. And then he's fainting, you know, like, you know, and falling like a, you know, like a thunderbolt on the ground, you know, and just stunned, completely stunned. And sometimes he's jumping up and Hare Krishna, you know, these ecstatic emotions for Krishna are so overwhelming that the material body can hardly contain it. So there's so much bliss in Krishna consciousness. Yes, and Lord Chaitanya's coming and he's teaching this process. He's actually so greedy. He's come to enjoy what his devotees are getting, and that's all he's here for. He's not here for anything else. He's not here for mundane relationships, you know, in the Grihastha ashram or anything. So therefore he takes sannyas and he dedicates his life to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. And he's preaching this Krishna consciousness everywhere. But he is Krishna himself. So anyone who was fortunate enough to see Lord Chaitanya, immediately they came to the transcendental platform because it was God himself there. It was Krishna. And he was chanting his names. Hare Krishna, Hare. And millions of people would come to see Lord Chaitanya. They'd come in droves because there was so much bliss and nectar just being in the association of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One time he was in the forest of Jharkhand. He was on a pilgrimage and to Vrindavan, I believe. And then wherever he walked, you know, the animals would become enchanted by this golden sannyasi, you know, who was so beautiful with lotus eyes and long arms and, you know, all the auspicious features of a transcendental personality. And he would be singing and chanting Hare Krishna. And then the animals would start to chant Hare Krishna. And he'd call out, chant Hare Krishna, chant Hare Krishna. And he'd tell them, you know, they all come to see him and he'd preach to them, chant Hare. And all of a sudden the animals would start chanting Hare Krishna, believe it or not. Because by the potency of the Supreme Lord, they forgot that they were animals and they started to chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. We can't imagine. You know, but it's described that, in this pastime, the tigers and the deers were all dancing, and then they danced with each other, and they even kissed each other. Yes, they kissed each other. But, obviously, unless you have faith, unless you hear and you understand the nature of the Supreme Lord and how the transcendental ecstasies and the possibilities and the activities are far from mundane, they're supra-mundane, they're completely spiritual and transcendental, then you'll have no faith in these pastimes. But we can understand that the Supreme Lord was chanting, and everyone became enthused by the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. So this chanting was going on, and everyone who came into contact with the holy names of the Lord came to the transcendental position. Immediately realized that they were, remembered that they were a servant of God, and they wouldn't. They never forgot Krishna, and every single one of them went back to the spiritual world. Everyone. So if you're fortunate enough, you can, if you have some attraction to Lord Chaitanya and his mercy and the nature of his merciful pastimes, then if you're very fortunate and you remember Lord Chaitanya at the time of death, then possibly you'll take, by the arrangement of the Supreme Soul who is beyond time, beyond matter, beyond space, he'll take you to that eternal pastime where you're with the Lord chanting, situated on the transcendental platform with Lord Chaitanya. Yes, how fortunate our lives would be. Hare Krishna, to be in the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. So yes, he comes as Lord Chaitanya, and this is the cyclic succession that we're coming in. We are servants of Lord Chaitanya. We're serving Krishna and Lord Chaitanya, who are non-different. So by the mercy of the devotees of Lord Chaitanya, who are very greedy to taste this devotional service to Krishna. And where does this greed come from? It comes from the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his brother, who is not different from Lord Balaram, Nityananda. So these two transcendental personalities have taken birth in the Kali Yuga again. Lord Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya are non-different from Krishna and Balaram. So again, these two brothers have come, and they're enjoying the devotional service to the residents of Vrindavan, another exalted pastime of theirs. So these pastimes are not different. The pastimes of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda are not different from the pastimes of Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram. It's just different moods. One is in the mood of sweetness, the sweet pastimes of love and affection between the residents of Vrajadam, and then we have the very merciful devotional pastimes of Lord Chaitanya with the devotees and the chanting of the holy names in relationship to their other lila that they performed previously. And by hearing these different pastimes of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda and Krishna and Balaram with the gopis and also with the devotees in Chaitanya Lila, one comes to the spiritual transcendental position and realizes that yes, this is all very nectarian. Let me remember this. Let me take shelter of this. Let me become a devotee of Krishna. So we have Lord Chaitanya, he's coming, and we're in this line. So by understanding the glories of Lord Chaitanya and the glories of the devotees of Krishna and Lord Chaitanya, then we can make all spiritual advancement. So this has been a pretty long class. Maybe I'll do a little bit more kirtan and then we'll finish up. Let's see. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Radhe Radhe Govinda, Govinda Radhe, Radhe Radhe Govinda, Govinda Radhe. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So thank you for listening, and chant Hare Krishna. Hare Bo.